Reporters say a legend has died, while critics view him as a dictator whose administration oversaw multiple human rights abuses and the country's economy. One thing is certain, however, the death of Fidel Castro has attracted reactions from all over the world. Having seized power in 1959, he ruled over Cuba for nearly 5 decades before handing over to his younger brother, Raúl, in 2008. In that period, he became popular, especially in Latin America and in Africa, for paving the way in the liberation of countries such as South Africa and Angola. Joining us from our Cape Town studio now is Father Alan Michael Lapsley. He is, of course, a South African Anglican priest and a social justice activist. He is also the first president of the Friends of Cuba. Father, thank you very much for being with us here on the program, and welcome to Morning Live.
Thank you very much. It's good to be with you and to be with your viewers across the country.
Thank you. Let's just start off with the Friends of Cuba Society. For what purpose did you actually form this organization?
Well, Cuba had shown solidarity with the peoples of Asia, Africa, and Latin America since the triumph of the revolution. And when some of us returned from exile in the early 90s, we believed it was time to return the compliment and to show solidarity with Cuba and to be part of the worldwide campaign to end the illegal and unjust blockade by the United States against Cuba. But we saw it from the beginning, excuse me, as a people-to-people solidarity movement, showing in a way that we had learned the lessons that Cuba had taught the world.
Yeah, it's quite incredible. I mean, you say that, and we have a look at something that's happening today in the States. I think it's a regular, everyday flight now flying into Havana, Cuba, and it's happening. I mean, the doors are opened, and today is quite a momentous occasion moving forward. You know, and those boundaries
that's
open.
True. That's true. But the blockade is still, you know, President Obama has normalized the diplomatic relations, but the economic blockade is still in place.
Yeah.
And only Congress has the power to do that. And of course, they are still illegally, the United States, that is, holding Guantanamo Bay. So there's still unfinished business, but even what we've seen in the last year or two has been extraordinary.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about some of your personal experiences. In 2014, I mean, you actually went to Cuba. You received the Cuban 5 in the country. Did you at any time meet the former leader Fidel Castro?
Yes. In fact, I met him a number of times, but in particular when he came on the state visit to South Africa. I was privileged to receive a friendship medal from the Cuban Council of State. But it was during that state visit that myself and other members of the Solidarity Movement had the opportunity to meet Comandante Fidel face to face. And indeed, he actually went out of his way to meet the Solidarity Movement and thank us for what we had done to express solidarity with Cuba. But of course, our hearts were filled with gratitude as South Africans for the role that Cuba had played under his leadership of helping pave the way for our freedom, particularly those events that came from the defeat of the South African Defence Force at Cunhavale, and that was what really paved the way for the independence of Namibia and showed the way towards our freedom.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just from your meetings with him and being in his presence, how would you describe the man?
Well, I think the first thing to say is that, I mean, he was very engaging, but he had a towering intellect, encyclopedic knowledge of a wide range of issues, but also a moral vision. And one was struck by his moral integrity and his, if you like, iron resolve there 90 miles away from the United States to create a socialist society and in very practical ways provide free quality education from crèche to university, free quality healthcare for every citizen. So not just the rhetoric of socialism, but its practical application in the lives of people. So I suppose in many ways, one does compare with Tata Mandela and the kind of awe of being in his presence. And I had that sense with Comandante Fidel, that he was a giant in the human family, but particularly a giant inspiring poor people in Asia, Africa, Latin America, and also showing the possibility that you could create a society based on the interests of a poor majority rather than a rich minority. And I think he will continue to inspire us as South Africans in our own project of building a more just and more equal society, as of course he inspires people across the world. But I think in a way, as South Africans, we would want to, if you like, extend a loving embrace to the Cuban people. I think every Cuban feels they've lost today a father, a grandfather, which is similar to how we felt when finally Nelson Mandela physically left us. But I think also I'd want to say that we are Fidel and Fidel is us. And I think his spirit will continue to inspire us as indeed he does to the Cubans.
Just on a final question, Father, in terms of, I mean, we know how popular Fidel Castro was here in South Africa and on the continent. In fact, I think it was at the 1994 inauguration of the President Nelson Mandela that when he arrived at the Union buildings, it was the loudest cheer from everybody gathered there. But just finally, when we talk about some of the criticism that's leveled against him, and many, speaking about the responsibility that he had for the exodus of over 1 million Cubans from his country, how would you defend his ways?
I think that it was another time. It was a revolution. Up until that time, Cuba had been the playground for the rich and the corrupt of the United States of America. And in the face of a society which was going to transform itself in the interests of the majority, those who are rich and powerful left. But today, and of course there are wounds in Cuba, but all these years later, those wounds have begun to heal and will continue to heal. And I think even in Miami, there were those who sadly, tragically rejoiced in the demise of Fidel, but that was not by any means everybody there. There were many, many Cuban Americans who also wanted to normalize relations and appreciated the role that Fidel had played in creating a more just society. All
right, Father, we leave it there for this morning. Thank you very, very much for your time and for talking to us about the late leader of Cuba, Fidel Castro, who of course passed away at 90 over the weekend. We still haven't heard the reasons of his passing, but certainly he hasn't been a well man for quite some time now. That was Father Michael Lapsley from the Friends of Cuba Society. We take a break here on the program. When we return,